My beloved brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. There's something important we need to speak about today, something many of us struggle with silently. We're trying to be kind to everyone, but we're being walked over. We're exhausted, we feel used, and we begin to question, am I doing something wrong? Let me start by saying this: Islam encourages kindness, mercy, and generosity, yes. But it never ever told you to lose yourself in the process. Islam promotes balance in every aspect of life, and that includes our character. One of the most beautiful qualities a believer can have is kindness. The Prophet Muhammad was described by Allah as a mercy to the worlds, and his entire life was filled with acts of gentleness, forgiveness, and compassion. However, Islam never calls us to lose ourselves in the name of kindness. In fact, one of the defining features of Islamic teachings is the principle of moderation. Neither excess nor deficiency is encouraged. Allah says in the Quran, "And do not be excessive. Indeed, He does not like those who commit excess." Surah An-An'am 6:14-1. This ayah is not just about material excess, it applies to all aspects of human behavior, including emotional and relational boundaries. Sometimes people believe that being kind means saying yes to every request, accommodating every demand, tolerating every form of mistreatment, and absorbing everyone's emotional weight, regardless of how heavy it becomes. This mindset, though well-intentioned, can quickly become harmful, not only to the individual who adopts it, but also to those around them. When we stretch ourselves too thin trying to please everyone, we end up losing balance, emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually. What starts as kindness can become self-neglect, and Islam does not call us to neglect ourselves for the sake of others. The life of the Prophet is full of examples where kindness was shown within clear boundaries. He gave his time to others, but he also gave time to himself and his family. He listened to people's problems, but he also spent hours in solitude and worship, recharging his soul and protecting his inner peace. He smiled, he forgave, he helped, but he never allowed himself to be used or taken advantage of. He taught us that kindness is a strength, not a weakness, and that strength includes the ability to say no when needed. This balance is vital because too much of anything, even kindness, can become detrimental. If you're always the one who listens, always the one who gives, always the one who sacrifices, but you're surrounded by people who never reciprocate, never respect your space, and only come to you when they need something, you have to stop and reflect. Are you truly being kind, or are you enabling harmful behavior in the name of kindness? There's a deep wisdom in Islam's emphasis on ADL, justice and fairness. Justice isn't just a societal principle, it's something you must apply to yourself. If you are constantly giving to others while denying yourself rest, peace, or emotional safety, then you are being unjust to yourself. And self-injustice is not a virtue. Allah says in the Quran, "Indeed, Allah does not wrong the people at all, but it is the people who wrong themselves." Surah Yunus 10:44. Islam also acknowledges human capacity. You are not expected to carry the world on your shoulders. The Prophet said, "The religion is easy, and no one makes it hard upon himself except that it overcomes him." Bukhari. This applies to your relationships as well. If you're constantly trying to be the good one in every relationship while others cross boundaries, disrespect your time, or ignore your needs, then you're making it unnecessarily hard on yourself. Being a good Muslim doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean you allow others to misuse your time or emotional energy. It means you carry yourself with dignity, integrity, and balance. True Islamic kindness is rooted in sincerity, but it is also wrapped in wisdom, and wisdom means knowing when to help and when to step back. It means giving others the best of you, without giving them all of you. Sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do for yourself and others is to set clear boundaries. When you respect yourself, you teach others how to respect you, and when you protect your peace, you're better able to show up for others in a way that is sincere and sustainable. Islam doesn't want you to burn out in the name of good character. It wants you to thrive in every area of your life, spiritually, emotionally, and socially. So always remember, kindness is a beautiful trait, but when it's not managed wisely, it can lead to self-harm. And in Islam, harming yourself is never rewarded. Maintain balance, set boundaries, and be kind, not just to others but to yourself as well. The idea of setting boundaries is often misunderstood, especially among Muslims who strive to be kind, generous, and selfless. Many think that to follow the Sunnah means to always say yes, to always be available, and to always put others before yourself. But when we look closely at the life of the Prophet Muhammad, we see something much deeper and more balanced. We see a man who was not only the embodiment of mercy and compassion, but also someone who understood the value of personal space, emotional well-being, and the right to say no. Boundaries are not just a modern psychological concept, they are part of the prophetic model. They are Sunnah. The Prophet was the most approachable and loving human being. People felt safe with him. Children played around him, the elderly sought his advice, and his companions loved to be in his presence. Yet despite this accessibility, the Prophet maintained healthy limits. There were times when he excused himself from gatherings. There were times when he asked companions to wait or redirected them gently if the situation did not permit a conversation or request. Even his own wives recognized that there were times the Prophet needed solitude, moments where he would be in deep remembrance, connecting with his Lord. Allah, in His wisdom, protected the Prophet's space as well. In Surah Al-Ahzab, Allah commands the believers not to linger in the Prophet's home unnecessarily and to avoid burdening him with long visits after meals. The verse says, "Do not enter the homes of the Prophet unless permission is given to you for a meal without awaiting its readiness, and when you have eaten, disperse without seeking to remain for conversation. Indeed, that behavior was troubling the Prophet, and he is shy of dismissing you. But Allah is not shy of the truth." Surah Al-Ahzab 33:53. This verse is a divine lesson in boundaries. Even the Prophet, with all his patience and humility, needed space, and Allah did not shy away from declaring that need publicly in the Quran. This teaches us something profound. Having boundaries is not a sign of arrogance or coldness. It is a sign of wisdom and emotional maturity. It is a reflection of knowing your limits and honoring your humanity. When we don't set boundaries, we often invite chaos into our lives. We find ourselves drained, emotionally exhausted, and sometimes even resentful. Why? Because we keep giving to others without considering what we are capable of. Islam teaches us to give, but it also teaches us to preserve ourselves. The Prophet said, "Your body has a right over you, your eyes have a right over you, and your family has a right over you." Bukhari. This hadith isn't just about physical rights, it's about balance. It reminds us that constantly giving to others while ignoring your own needs is not righteousness. True righteousness is measured, thoughtful, and sustainable. Furthermore, the Prophet did not allow himself to be emotionally manipulated. If someone was out of line, he corrected them. If someone asked too much, he redirected them with kindness. There were companions who made mistakes, who took liberties, and yet the Prophet knew how to correct them without being harsh, but also without being passive. This is what we must learn from. Being soft does not mean being weak. Being kind does not mean being naive. The Prophet was both gentle and firm, loving and assertive. Unfortunately, in today's world, we sometimes confuse religious humility with people-pleasing. But there is a difference. Humility is lowering yourself before Allah, acknowledging your limitations, and treating others with respect. People-pleasing, however, often leads to spiritual harm. It places the approval of others above the approval of Allah. And when that happens, we begin to feel empty because no matter how much we give, it's never enough for people who don't respect boundaries. The Sunnah shows us how to navigate relationships with balance. We help others, yes, but not at the cost of our mental health or our faith. We listen to others, but we also protect our hearts from becoming dumping grounds for negativity. We are generous with our time, but we are not reckless with it. Every moment is an amana, and every relationship must be handled with hikmah, wisdom. Setting boundaries, then, is not un-Islamic. In fact, it is part of the prophetic character. It is a way of preserving your energy so you can continue to serve others in a meaningful and sincere way. It is a way of saying, "I care for you, but I must also care for myself." It is a way of practicing mercy, not only toward others but toward your own soul. And when done with the right intention and with good character, boundaries become an act of worship, because they help you protect what Allah has entrusted you with: your mind, your heart, your time, and your faith. Kindness is one of the most beloved traits in Islam. The Prophet Muhammad was known for his mercy, his gentleness, and his willingness to help others regardless of their status, background, or even how they treated him. However, in today's world, the concept of kindness is sometimes misunderstood. Many people believe that in order to be truly kind, you must accept every request, tolerate every insult, and remain silent in the face of injustice. But that's not what Islam teaches. Kindness, when not rooted in wisdom, can easily turn into weakness, and Islam does not promote weakness, it promotes strength, dignity, and justice. There is a delicate balance between being kind and being taken advantage of. The Prophet was kind, but he was never weak. He forgave, but he stood up for what was right. He was generous, but he knew when to say no. If we allow our kindness to become a reason for others to manipulate us, walk over us, or burden us unjustly, we are not practicing prophetic kindness, we are simply allowing ourselves to be misused. And when that happens over and over again, we eventually feel hurt, bitter, and even spiritually drained. Allah commands us to be just, and justice starts with how we treat ourselves. If your kindness leads to injustice against yourself, where you constantly feel exhausted, taken for granted, or emotionally broken, then something is not right. Allah says in the Quran, "Indeed, Allah commands justice, excellence, and giving to relatives and forbids immorality, bad conduct, and oppression." Surah An-Nahl 1690. Oppression is not just what others do to us. It's also what we allow to happen when we don't speak up or set limits. It's important to recognize that Islam never equated righteousness with self-erasure. You are allowed to speak up. You are allowed to protect yourself. You are allowed to say this is not okay. Some people will tell you that enduring poor treatment is a sign of patience or humility, but enduring abuse or mistreatment without addressing it is not patience. It's submission to injustice. Even the most patient people in Islamic history, like the prophets and the Sahaba, stood up against wrongdoing. They didn't allow kindness to become a tool used against them. The Prophet taught us strength through his actions. When people disrespected the message, he stood firm. When hypocrites tried to test his patience or question his leadership, he responded with clarity and dignity. When someone crossed a boundary, he addressed it. This is the example we are to follow. True kindness is not passive, it is active. It is rooted in confidence and clarity. It does not allow others to take advantage of our silence. Furthermore, we must remember that the aim of our kindness is not to be liked by everyone. It is to please Allah. If you are constantly trying to earn people's approval by being overly available, endlessly giving, or staying silent in the face of disrespect, you will never feel peace. People's opinions change, their gratitude fades, their expectations grow, but Allah sees everything. He knows your intentions, your efforts, and your sacrifices. When you act with sincerity for His sake, even if people misunderstand you, your reward is secure. Being kind doesn't mean saying yes all the time. Sometimes the most merciful thing you can do is say no. It helps the other person learn, grow, and respect boundaries. It teaches them that you are not someone who can be used or dismissed. And most importantly, it preserves your mental and spiritual well-being, which is also a trust from Allah. We also have to be cautious of enabling toxic behavior. If someone constantly demands your time, your attention, your energy, without ever considering your feelings or limits, they are not valuing your kindness. And if you continue to give in the name of being a good Muslim, you are reinforcing their harmful behavior. Islam teaches us to help others, but not to harm ourselves in the process. There is no virtue in drowning while trying to save someone who refuses to swim. So reflect deeply. Are you being kind, or are you losing yourself? Are you helping, or are you being drained? Are you doing this for Allah or for people's validation? Real kindness is measured. It is firm when it needs to be. It is gentle, but not weak. It is giving, but not self-destructive. The Prophet said, "A believer is not stung from the same hole twice." Bukhari and Muslim, that means a believer learns, a believer reflects, a believer grows stronger with each experience, not weaker. If your kindness has been taken for granted, learn from it, adjust your approach, and move forward with greater wisdom. Let your kindness be purposeful, let it be sincere, but never let it cost you your strength, your boundaries, or your dignity, because Islam does not call you to be kind at any cost. It calls you to be balanced, wise, and strong, just as our beloved Prophet was. In life, we often find ourselves in relationships or situations where we are told to be patient, to keep giving, to keep forgiving, regardless of how others treat us. While patience and forgiveness are highly praised in Islam, we must understand that they are not unlimited passes for others to wrong us without accountability. Islam is a religion of justice and honor. It does not ask us to tolerate toxic relationships, emotional manipulation, or abuse under the guise of sabr or humility. In fact, the teachings of Islam empower the believer to recognize harm and to act with wisdom in removing themselves from situations that threaten their dignity or well-being. The Prophet Muhammad taught us balance. He did not allow people to harm him repeatedly. He forgave, yes, but he also corrected. He welcomed others with kindness, but he also distanced himself from those whose intentions were corrupt or harmful. He was not naive to the games people played. Even when the hypocrites around him tried to twist his words or plot behind his back, he remained firm, discerning, and just. His actions showed us that forgiveness does not mean blind acceptance, and tolerance does not mean silence in the face of repeated harm. One important hadith captures this balance perfectly. The Prophet said, "Do not be a blind follower, saying, 'If people do good, we will do good, and if they do wrong, we will do wrong.' Rather, prepare yourselves. If people do good, but if they do wrong, do not do wrong." Tirmidhi. This narration teaches us a powerful lesson. We are not meant to mimic those around us blindly. We are not meant to accept every behavior or remain silent when wrong is done. Islam calls us to be conscious, intentional, and principled, even in our relationships. There are moments when stepping back from certain people is not only permitted, but encouraged. If someone repeatedly lies, manipulates, disrespects, or uses your kindness against you, continuing to tolerate it is not righteousness, it is self-harm. Islam does not ask you to put yourself in harm's way emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. If your heart is heavy, if your peace is constantly disturbed, if your iman is affected by someone's presence in your life, you have every right to create distance. And doing so does not mean you hate that person. It means you are protecting what Allah has entrusted you with, your soul. It's important to also realize that toxic behavior is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it comes in the form of guilt-tripping, subtle disrespect, one-sided relationships, or emotional dependency that drains you. Islam encourages healthy interactions based on mutual respect, trust, and love for the sake of Allah, not relationships where one person gives and the other only takes. Even in the best of relationships, like marriage and family, the Quran commands fairness and kindness from both sides. When that is missing consistently, it is your responsibility to recognize the imbalance and act with wisdom. Many times people remain stuck in harmful dynamics because they fear being seen as selfish or unkind. But in Islam, self-respect is not selfishness, it is part of your dignity as a believer. Allah honored you with Islam. He clothed you with honor. He does not want you to accept humiliation from anyone. That doesn't mean you become harsh or vengeful. It means you uphold your worth with gentleness, just as the Prophet did. He never belittled himself to gain someone's approval. He never allowed anyone to cross the line without reminding them of what is right. If someone continuously harms you and refuses to change despite being advised, Islam gives you the right to walk away. This is especially important when your inner peace and closeness to Allah are being affected. The Prophet himself distanced from people when necessary, not out of pride but out of protection. He chose company that lifted him spiritually, that brought light, sincerity, and support. You must do the same. The people you allow closest to you influence your thoughts, your emotions, and even your connection with Allah. If that influence is dark, heavy, or harmful, it is time to set boundaries. Sometimes, the greatest mercy you can give yourself is space, from people, from chaos, from repeated emotional wounds. Islam is a religion that gives you the tools to live with strength, clarity, and balance. You are not weak for walking away. You are not un-Islamic for guarding your peace. In fact, you are practicing one of the highest forms of wisdom, knowing when to hold on and when to let go. Never think that choosing your well-being is against the teachings of Islam. It is in truth a form of gratitude to Allah for valuing the body, the mind, and the heart He has given you. And when you let go of relationships or situations that weigh you down, you make space for peace, clarity, and barakah to enter your life. That is not failure. That is growth. That is Islam. Many people give and give endlessly to others, hoping to feel appreciated, hoping to be seen, hoping that someone will recognize their efforts and say, "Thank you." But when that gratitude never comes, or worse, when people criticize or take us for granted despite our sacrifices, we begin to feel hurt, disappointed, and even broken. In those moments, it's important to remind ourselves of a fundamental truth in Islam. The reward for your actions does not come from people, it comes from Allah. And Allah is never ungrateful. He is Ash-Shakur, the most appreciative. This divine name, Ash-Shakur, means that even the smallest of efforts you make for His sake will never go unnoticed. If you smile at someone, He knows. If you hold back anger for the sake of peace, He records it. If you serve your family, tolerate someone's bad behavior, or give when it's difficult, all for His pleasure, then understand that you are investing in a reward that is guaranteed. People might forget. They might not care. They may never even realize what you did for them. But Allah never forgets. And that alone should bring peace to your heart. Sometimes we attach our kindness to the approval of others, consciously or unconsciously. We do good to win someone's heart, to feel needed, to avoid rejection. But when we give to people expecting a return, we set ourselves up for disappointment. Islam teaches us to purify our intentions, to shift our focus from the creation to the Creator. When you do something sincerely for Allah, even if nobody acknowledges you, you still feel peace. But when you do something primarily for people and they let you down, it leaves a scar. That's why the Quran reminds us over and over again to seek the reward of the hereafter. Allah says, "Indeed, we do not allow to be lost the reward of anyone who does a good deed." Surah Al-Kahf, 1830. This is a powerful promise. It means that no sincere act, no matter how small, how private, or how overlooked by the world, is ever wasted. Allah knows how much you wanted to be kind, how hard it was to be patient, how deeply it hurt when your good was repaid with bad. And He will reward you in ways no human can. The Prophet Muhammad also taught us this principle. He told us not to expect anything in return from the people we help. He said, "The most beloved of people to Allah are those who are most beneficial to people." Tabarani. But notice, He didn't say that people will always be grateful in return. In fact, He experienced the opposite. Despite being the most selfless man, He was insulted, rejected, and even harmed. Yet He continued to give because He wasn't doing it for praise. He was doing it for Allah. One of the reasons people become emotionally exhausted is because they tie their kindness to recognition. When you're always giving but never receiving appreciation, you start to feel empty. That's why it's vital to check your heart and realign your intentions. Ask yourself, am I doing this for Allah or for attention, for His reward or theirs? The answer to that question can change how you feel about everything. Another powerful mindset to adopt is this: you are responsible for your actions, not the reactions of others. If you do good and someone reacts with ingratitude or arrogance, that's their test, not yours. Your test was whether you would do good for the right reasons, and if you did, you've already succeeded. The rest is not your burden. Don't carry the emotional weight of someone else's character flaws, and don't let their ingratitude change who you are. Just because someone didn't value your effort doesn't mean you should stop being a kind person. Your value doesn't decrease because someone failed to see it. Your reward is with Allah, and it is safe with Him. Don't let people's lack of appreciation cause you to harden your heart. Protect your sincerity, guard your softness, but also protect your limits. You can continue to be kind without giving access to those who mistreat you. You can pray for someone without allowing them to disrupt your peace. Islam does not ask you to open yourself up to endless hurt. It asks you to do good with wisdom and then place your trust in Allah's justice. The people who overlook you today might regret it tomorrow, but you will never regret what you did for Allah. So remember, Allah sees the silent tears. He hears the unspoken exhaustion. He knows when you gave even when it hurt. And He never wastes the reward of the doers of good. So keep going. Even if no one claps for you, your reward is coming. And when it comes from Allah, it will be more beautiful than anything the world can offer. The people you allow into your life have a deep impact on your heart, your habits, and even your relationship with Allah. Islam is very clear about the power of influence. The Prophet Muhammad said, "A person is upon the religion of his close friend, so let one of you look at whom he befriends." Abu Dawood. This profound hadith teaches us that the company we keep shapes our beliefs, our priorities, and our lifestyle. Even if you are strong in faith, surrounding yourself with negative, careless, or toxic individuals will eventually affect your inner state. That's why in Islam, protecting your circle is not just social wisdom, it's spiritual responsibility. Sometimes we remain in the company of people out of habit, obligation, or emotional attachment, even when those people are harmful to our growth. We may feel guilty distancing ourselves, especially when we think that doing so is unkind or un-Islamic. But Islam doesn't ask you to keep unhealthy people close just for the sake of appearances or politeness. It asks you to protect your iman, your heart, and your mental state, because these are gifts from Allah that we are entrusted with. A person who constantly backbites, lies, complains, or fills your environment with negativity is someone you need to be careful around. Their behavior slowly seeps into your heart. Even if you don't imitate their actions directly, your standards begin to shift. What once felt wrong starts to feel normal. What once bothered your conscience now becomes tolerable. That's how subtle and dangerous bad company can be. It numbs the soul, and once the soul is numb, it no longer feels the sweetness of faith. On the other hand, when you surround yourself with people who remind you of Allah, who bring light to your heart, who lift you up and correct you gently when you slip, those people are a mercy in your life. Being in their company makes you more aware of your actions. It softens your heart and brings you closer to the character of the Prophet. That is the kind of companionship Islam urges us to seek, not just friendly faces, but souls that walk with you toward Jannah. But to reach that, you must first be willing to create space. If your life is full of the wrong voices, there's no room for the right ones. And yes, setting those boundaries may be difficult at first. You might be misunderstood. You might be called cold, distant, or arrogant. But you must remember that your peace is not up for negotiation. Your connection with Allah is more important than maintaining bonds that are damaging your heart. Some people drain your energy every time you interact with them. They constantly ask for your time, but never give you peace. They take advantage of your kindness, ignore your values, or even mock your religious efforts. If someone continuously disrespects your efforts to be a better Muslim, that person is not a friend to your iman. No matter how long you've known them or how close you once were, the truth is, your soul was not created to stay trapped in environments that pull it away from Allah. And the test is not always obvious. Sometimes the people who distract you from Allah do so subtly. They don't curse or do haram openly, but their constant focus on dunya, their complaints, their gossip, and their careless attitudes slowly pull you away from remembrance and reflection. Before you know it, you've spent hours in a gathering and not once remembered Allah or benefited your heart. That's not the company a believer is meant to keep. At times you'll feel lonely when you choose to walk away from unhealthy company. But that loneliness is temporary, and it's better than the false comfort of toxic companionship. Allah often clears space in your life before He fills it with better. Don't be afraid of solitude if it means protecting your soul. The Prophet would retreat to the cave of Hira, not because he hated people, but because he was preparing his heart for something greater. Sometimes you need distance to grow. Always remember that you don't need a large circle. You need a sincere one. Even one righteous friend who strengthens your iman is better than 100 who weaken it. The right companions help you guard your tongue, remember your purpose, and stay consistent in worship. They push you closer to Allah, not away from Him. So be intentional. Choose company that elevates you spiritually. And if you must walk alone for a while, know that Allah is always with you. He sees your sacrifices. He knows your struggles. And He will replace what you gave up for His sake with something far better. The people around you either help you build your akhirah or distract you from it. Choose wisely, because in the end your company will either walk with you toward paradise or lead you far from it.